Hello and welcome to This Week at the Movies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Eric.
And it's a good thing Easter Sunday is tomorrow because we have some sinners to talk about today. The big release of the week and perhaps the best movie of the year so far. Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan are back together for Sinners, which we knew was going to be a vampire film. But I don't think I realized until I started watching it what an incredible period drama and what an incredible piece of musical theater this was going to be. It's got a ton of original songs that will stick with you long after this is over. A great period piece set in 1932. Michael B. Jordan in a dual role as twins Smoke and Stack, who are fresh back from working for Al Capone in Chicago and are there to open a juke joint in Mississippi, just a place that was very culturally friendly, integrated, no, I'm just kidding. It was none of those things in the 30s or today, if we're being honest. But they set up to open this. They recruit their cousin, who is the son of a preacher and a darn good blues player, played by Miles Caton, who was incredible. Along the way, they run into their former flames. For Stack, his former flame is Haley Steinfeld, who used so many euphemisms for female genitalia that I never want to hear that again. Throughout this film, a couple of times, I'm like, I hope my wife doesn't throw on Pitch Perfect 2 this weekend because I'm not going to be able to sit for it. But it all kind of culminates in the opening night kickoff for their juke joint. They're having a good old time when Jack O'Connell and a couple of his new friends show up and want to join the party. They're put off because it's a couple of strange white people in the middle of their party, but they needn't be afraid because they were white people. They needed to be afraid because they turned out to be vampires, and things quickly go off the rails from there. This movie starts out to me like an incredible kind of period piece and exploration. I was listening to a podcast I like called The Big Picture, where they called it kind of almost an homage to the history of blues, which is probably true. Like the first hour, I almost forgot that we were in a vampire movie.
Mm.
And then the last hour is some very savage violence and action, some really cool sequences. I've heard some people liken it to a movie that I like. I'm sure you like it too, Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, I can get that.
It does give some of those vibes at the end, but this is really unlike anything I think I've ever seen. The performances, it's an original script written by Ryan Coogler. He directed it here. He and Michael B. Jordan have been together in all 5 of the feature films that he's made. I mean, only a cameo in Wakanda Forever, but still there.
Yeah.
But he has been a pretty main star in most of Coogler's films, from Fruitvale Station to Creed, to his work in the first Black Panther movie. Never seen him like this. I don't know if Michael B. Jordan's ever been better. Creates two pretty distinct characters, 2 pretty distinct love stories. And I loved the whole thing. I'm giving it 2 thumbs up. I loved all the action. I really enjoyed the coda they tacked on to the end as well, which I thought was very creative and a lot of fun. The original music, everything, it was spectacular. So far, I would say it's the best movie of the year so far.
Yeah. Yes, I'm also 100%. I'm 2 hard thumbs up on this movie. I think I'm going to remember a sequence where they play music outside of time and burn the building down as one of the best cinematic moments that I've had in a movie theater in my life.
And that is by far, I think, the best song. I'll look up its title while you go for a minute. You can pull the soundtrack off of iTunes or off of YouTube. They have a lot of the songs. A couple of those songs, the blues songs were great. They do an original kind of Irish jig song.
Yeah.
In there that I thought was also
the Rocky Road to Dublin.
Yeah, that's it. Rocky Road to Dublin.
That song, I've hooked onto that song ever since they played it in the first Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr. And I've listened to it in multiple different iterations over the years. And it just played a rendition of it in Daredevil during the bank episode. And here it is again, just peeking its head out in the most perfectly carefully played, like, white cultural history, like, purposeful way. It was so well placed. Everything in this movie is so well done. Like, so I'm gonna be straight. If I were to turn off my brain a little bit and try and think of this thing just nitpicking logically, there are a couple of things in the movie where the characters act like impulsively, and, like, you know, they invite all the vampires in at once instead of inviting them in one at a time and trying to take them out and be strategic. And most of the vampires at the end, instead of trying to find refuge for the sun to come up, just decide to all stand around, and, you know, something else happens. And it doesn't matter, because these things are so not the point of what's happening. What's happening is such an in my head, what the vampires represent is this promise of you know, a horde of people who are going to suck the life and pull you into a melting pot where you lose your individual cultural identity in order to become part of a whole that is going to live on. If that is not about the acculturation of Black history as they tried to transition from becoming slaves and transcending through Jim Crow into becoming, you know, like, full rights Americans, I don't know what the point is if it's not that. And the messages through action of, if you come after our children, we will fight you to the death over it. And if we lose everything as the result of that fight, we will get our revenge and all of you will die. It's so heart thumping and bone breaking and just, like, satisfying and cathartic in, like, the best way. This movie, I don't have the right word for it, but it's a picture. It speaks 1,000 words. You have to see this movie. Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld, Delroy Lindo, Miles Caton.
And then the one I just looked it up because I didn't want to mispronounce it. Wunmi Mosaku.
Wunmi Mosaku. Yeah. Oh my gosh, she's unbelievable. And I love that she's got this, like, vampire lore down. She has a couple of things in there. And then, like,
another person from the Marvel Cinematic Universe too. She plays an integral part in Loki and was in Daredevil and Wolverine. But very good. She and Haley Steinfeld playing opposite the two halves of Michael B. Jordan. I thought was pretty magical. And Miles Caton, his first movie.
I know, he's unbelievable.
That song, the song you're talking about is called "I Lied to You." That is an original co-written by Ludwig Göransson, who did the score here, and performed by him, and it was incredible.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Jack O'Connell as lead vampire, incredible. Whatever he does next, I hope he gets to do, like, larger and, like, leading roles and things. He's outstanding. Also, of course, they got a guy named Jack O'Connell to play that, like, Irish history.
I mean, he does such a good job because you only see him in a couple of scenes before the big, final confrontation, and he does such a nice job kind of bringing it in. And the two his first two recruits, when he shows up and they're playing music there, you almost can't help but laugh, even though it's kind of a serious tense moment, but they're so charming.
There's a lot of that in here where you feel like you're not sure if you're allowed to be laughing at what's going on, but it is kind of funny. Like everything with Cornbread, his whole that
Omar Benson Miller, very good.
I think he does the best job of anyone at playing the eerie transition between human and, other. I don't want to spoil the whole movie by talking about
Well,
every beat that happens, but like,
what I think is interesting is a lot of times when you get into like horror movies or even these kind of vampire movies, most of the setup, yes, they're trying to tell you who these characters are, and they're trying to build an investment in them so that you care once everything goes to hell. Because if you don't really care about the protagonists who are not the vampires that are trying to survive, it's really hard for these movies to hit their arc. But I don't think I've ever seen anything that was so interested in world building and character building aside from where we're going. And I almost think I'm just going to say, I totally think now the marketing campaign does this an entire disservice, because I think you might be prone to watch that trailer and see, they pick a couple of really graphic and bloody scenes from Jack O'Connell and Haley Steinfeld that they throw in there. And you are very much aware all the way through that this is, or if from watching the trailer, that this is going to be a big time vampire film. There's a way they could have marketed this film completely different, and that vampire twist would have been a little harder, or you could have gotten, what I worry about a little bit. I'll be curious to see the Weekend box. It's got an incredible word of mouth, and it does have a great cast, and there are a lot of people that like horror movies that would turn out, but I think this is a movie that people that don't like horror movies and don't like traditional vampire movies, last year we had a movie that ended up exploding at the box office that was a vampire movie in Nosferatu, that I thought had a sense of craft and a sense of pace and a sense of storytelling that transcended what you might expect from the basics of
like
the
a monster movie
genre. And I feel the same way about Sinners, and I hope that a wider variety of people go to check it out.
See, that's the thing. It has the same thing going on that Companion had, where they had a first trailer that spoiled nothing and had a lot of weight and gravity to it. But I think in this case, I think they put so much money into it that by some other people's mention, if you include the marketing budget and everything, this movie has to make almost $300 million to start turning a profit. And at that point, I think you have to tell people, you have to hit the widest range audience of like, hey, come for Michael B. Jordan, come for Ryan Coogler, come for the period piece and the tone of what we're doing, but also come for the vampires. I think there's a whole range of an audience that needs to know that that's what it's about in order to get them to get in the theater and actually agree to watch it. Word of mouth could have spread that around. But I don't know if they can, if they only have like a 6-week run in theaters before this is dumped on digital, they put all of these resources into having it shot on IMAX. And I'm so disappointed that I don't think I'm going to get to see it in IMAX. I can only pray.
I did see it on IMAX because the time worked out, and I had a free IMAX upgrade. And after I got into it, I was like, "Oh, I'm glad I saw this." I was waiting to use my free IMAX on something that was worthwhile. I almost did it when I went and saw Warfare, but I was like, "No, I'm gonna wait, and I'm gonna do Sinners that way." And it was definitely worthwhile, especially for the audio. With these musical sequences and everything. That's the other thing people don't really take into account. I think with IMAX, yes, it's a bigger, premium format screen, but usually the sound's a little better.
Yeah. The only thing I can hope for at this point is on home video release, they mess with the aspect ratio they do with Christopher Nolan's movies, so I get to see the full image that they captured. Yeah. But
Speaking of Companion, do you know it's already free streaming on Max now?
Yep.
I mean, the windows for these have gotten so much smaller.
So tiny.
The movie that Sinners swapped theatrical windows with, Mickey 17, has already been on VOD for 2 weeks.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of time to make money, and that worries me because this needs to be successful.
Well, if any movie does really well, they probably will let it run a little bit longer.
I don't know if they set those contracts up beforehand or not. If they've already made deals for it to drop
Mm.
on streaming at a certain point, then they're gonna have to stick to it. But like,
Well, I do recommend though this. There are movies. There are two movies we're going to talk about today that I think are worth seeing in a theatrical experience because it will be changed going to home viewing, and Sinners being
yeah,
one of those. I think, is it still going to be enjoyable when you're watching it at home? Sure, but it's not going to be the same.
no,
And I loved the soundtrack. I loved so much about it. Good morning to you as well, team.
Good morning, Team of Panda.
Watch
Sinners.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. The first quarter of the year, meaning the first 3 months, gave me pause.
Yeah,
our friend Ricky,
one of them paid off.
Hasn't seen a lot of movies this year, and I was like, I'll be honest, I don't know if you missed that much.
Yeah,
by not seeing all that, but we have really turned a corner here in April. I will say Minecraft is not my kind of movie, but for the audience that it's aimed for,
sure.
And has been a boon to theaters. The last weekend we had a solid three releases that I really enjoyed. This one killing it. Here this weekend, there's another smaller release this weekend that I'll mention at the end that I thought was good. And then next weekend, we have a couple of interesting ones. Another interesting horror movie that you and I are going to be looking at, The Until Dawn, also based on a video game. And then The Accountant 2. So, I mean, I feel like we're turning a corner. May, we have Thunderbolts and a new Mission Impossible to look at. So...
the new trailer,
movies are back.
God!
I was a little in mid-February, and then the beginning of March, I was like, "We might be screwed." Movies are back. I no longer have anything less than 3.5 stars in my top 12. So that makes me feel a little bit better about life. I really enjoyed this one. Seems like you did too. I hope it's a good sign of things to come. I hope Michael B. Jordan remains kind of in the conversation as we're going further along. My only fear is this is going to be that movie that everyone loves early up in the year, like what happened with Dune Part 2, that by the time you get to the end, but we'll see what all's coming out. See what there is to get hyped for. Any other Sinners thoughts?
Oh my gosh, please go see this movie. Like, just go. This is definitely Ryan Coogler transcending into like the names of directors like Scorsese and Tarantino, where his films are an event, and it is time to attend this event before you miss your chance.
Well, and so he's made 5 feature films. We can name check them. Fruitvale Station, which if you've never seen it, a biopic about a very tragic event that happened in the Bay Area of California. Michael B. Jordan. That was probably, I had seen him on The Wire. And I had seen him on Friday Night Lights, but that pushed him to a new level for me. Then he did Creed. And I'll be honest,
I like
the original Creed. I still think that's probably the weakest of his 5 films. That's the one I have the lowest. Then he did Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and now Sinners. That's a pretty bang.
There's not a weak
and a pretty diverse first 5 films. You have a kind of smaller, intimate, serious biopic drama. You have a
A-list
franchise
boxing movie.
You have a big. He made one of the best. I still have Black Panther as the second best Marvel movie ever, and one of my favorite superhero films of all time. And then this movie so far, I think the best of the year so far. Had a lot of fun with it, and a completely different feel, completely different look, totally different genre. Well, we'll move from one devil to the next as we wrap up our season-long tracking of Daredevil Born Again. The final 2 episodes have gone out. We saw the finale on Tuesday. The end of the first 9 episodes. The second season, I think, is actually 8 episodes. I saw the episode count tick back to 17. I guess we'll find out when it comes out. I feel like things are constantly in shift. And that would make sense because, we've talked a little bit about how Daredevil as a TV project. Started one way with one set of showrunners and producers, and they kind of changed teams halfway through, and we really liked that with the way it worked out in the pilot for this.
Mhm.
These last two episodes definitely heavily influenced by that change of structure. I really liked 8. It sounds like you really enjoyed 8.
Mhm.
9 almost, the finale almost reminds me of the second season finale of House of the Dragon, where you leave the penultimate episode like shit's about to get real.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's about to get real in the next season, because for an hour, because it not only was the finale one of the longest episodes they've had,
Mhm.
it felt like a lot of throat clearing filled with interstitials of incredibly high violence from John Bernthal and Charlie Cox. And I'm not saying I don't enjoy watching the Punisher
Right.
and Daredevil do their thing, and I was happy to see Karen back. But there was not much forward progress on the momentum of some of these. There's a great tension to me in the 8th episode, the penultimate episode,
Absolutely.
with Matt Murdock coming to the precipice of his life outside of Daredevil he's tried to create, and his old life of Daredevil smacking together, and what that means for the people that are currently important to him in his life. And those people were, outside of an opening sequence in the finale, not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Little frustrating.
Episode 8 was everything I wanted, that I was like uncertain about after episode 7. The last time we talked about this, I was like, we're getting pretty far along in the show for there not to be a lot of momentum in, Daredevil becoming Daredevil and Kingpin doing what he's doing. And I feel like they have rushed Kingpin into a position of power. There's this thing that happened in the original Netflix show where Kingpin seems to have this Deus Ex Machina nature about him, where there's always a twist where before he even knew he was going to be in a position of power, he had already been doing research on people and their children in order to know how to push their buttons. Like, his superpower is that he's constantly always got dirt on everyone somehow. And the same thing happens here, where all of these people that touted having, control over him because they're the people with money and whatnot, are all basically locked in cages, and he's in control of everything, pulls a switch, pulls martial law. And this is all just very weird timing, because what happens is episode 8 leads up to this big tense moment where Bullseye is on the loose trying to kill Kingpin, has just shot Matt, who has just sacrificed himself for Kingpin, giving himself this sense of grace where he's inverted what he did to Bullseye by giving his own life to save an enemy versus taking the enemy's life. And it's at this great crossroads moment. And the answer to the tension built in his relationships and everything here is Bullseye just disappears and stops killing somewhere for no reason and just is gone. Kingpin wants to kill Matt Murdock. All of a sudden, right now, he thinks that's a good idea for his resources, when he knows that Bullseye has already slaughtered an entire building of FBI agents and police officers to get to him, and the only person that saved him at that moment, and Vanessa, was Daredevil. His actions is like, now that I'm alive, it's time for me to take control. And he aims that direction in such weird directions. And in the meantime, Frank comes to save Punisher, and then Frank goes off, it seems like, to protect Karen and Daredevil, because he knows they're investigating Kingpin. And so he goes to the location because he hears over the radio that all the police are gathering in one spot, and he ends up in trapped and in a cage. And it is odd to me because
First they tried to recruit him, which
is hilarious after he's
weird.
slaughtered so many of them.
But you killed like 60 of my men. I hope it was worth it. Yeah.
Join us. Yeah. Yeah. It is very satisfying to hear the Punisher talk about how misled and how much people wearing his symbol as a badge of pride is such a missing the point kind of thing. And I love when they addressed that in the comics, and they talked about like, you're a police officer, you're here to serve and protect, you have a symbol, get a tattoo of Captain America's shield, get like, you have your symbol, like, I am not your hero.
Well,
I
it's
am.
also kind of hilarious that their entire thing is about stopping vigilantes and stamping them out while adopting the symbol of the
Yes.
most well recognized vigilante.
Yes, and I love when they call that out. They did that for a brief second, and then that's put on pause. The things with Heather are put on pause. The situation with Matt Murdock's life is that he's being hunted as both Matt and Daredevil, and they know where he works, they know where he lives, they know who his girlfriend is. He's really got nowhere to go, and he says he's going to build an army, but we have no reason to know what that means because.
Well, and he never told his partner, who was basically begging to be let in as early as the 6th episode, I think, when she tracks Clark Johnson down, says, "I know you guys there's something going on. Just let me in." I mean,
even that decision by her to talk about how like masked vigilantes, the way that she transitions to, oh, they're just such a menace. And then Kingpin gives her this bizarre made up job, the commissioner of mental health. Like there's going to be some sort of government oversight operation towards all the mental health provision of the city.
oh,
like
that one's indecipherable too. I met his legal partner.
Oh,
they kind of left her, like, I thought maybe
yeah.
she'd show up at the end, and I don't know if Matt's like weary of telling her because she doesn't want her to die like Foggy, but you at this point have to assume that she's a bigger target in waiting if you don't let her in
Right.
on what's going on, because everybody knows who you are, buddy.
Yeah, like okay, so she's got the folder that will expose what Vanessa and Kingpin are up to, but what is she supposed to do with it under a martial law city run by him? What legal or
Also,
like media recourse does she
the
have?
state would have stepped in. No offense, but
yes, probably. And
the
like
state of New York would have gotten on the phone. They went from like zero to dictator with Kingpin a little too fast. Like he was slow playing, putting pieces in motion, feigning, trying to work with people. And, like Michael Gandolfini's character has kind of always been a little bit of his stooge, but he like went a little too eagerly maybe into criminal enterprise. And the lady that's his right-hand person, I guess they've been trying to slow play her like descent into just giving in to everything. But there was never for one moment in that exchange with the police commissioner where I thought she was actually going to help him and wasn't about to turn him in. And I'm like, okay, this is not great. And then for her to have like remorse afterward that, oh, what have I done? You knew what you were doing. You knew what you were doing.
Yeah,
I'm not feeling sorry for you. You've seen this. You've had a front row seat to this the whole time.
And like I understand everyone she cares about in her own life are immediately in danger if she doesn't do what he wants, and that's Kingpin's whole deal. But like I don't know, playing around and stringing it out when we all kind of want, like, I think this was just a whole lot of firing off in the wrong direction with the progress of the characters and then stunting the progress of every character that like episode 8 makes you interested in. And
there's just so many tonal shifts, like the early part dealing with grief and him trying to move on. And, I have questions about whether the White Tiger storyline got stunted because he was sick. Or if that was always what they intended, but that hit pretty hard. And then I enjoyed episode 5, which was the bank interstitial, but right now, I enjoyed it at the time. I still enjoy it for what it is, but when you set it in the middle of context, everything else, it feels like the most random interstitial in the history of time. Yeah, and I guess I know now why they can't pull it out, because they reference it. in 6 and 7.
Hmm.
But that kind of makes it a little bit rougher. And the storyline with Muse, I think there is a way that in an older version of Daredevil that would have played out over more than 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I felt like they kind of wrapped that up pretty quickly, and then 8 and 9 to me are almost symbolic of the entire season. You have a great building towards something that I was bummed when 8 was over that I couldn't just immediately see what was going to happen. I left on a high note, and I didn't feel that same way when the finale was over.
Right.
And it has the tacked on extra scenes so that you can get ready for what we all know is the Punisher special that's coming, So not at any point in time did I think the Punisher was in danger of being killed, because we already know he's coming in his own film next year. And then, I think you and I talked about this a little off air. The speech he gives at the end, everybody's like, oh, well, that paves the way for the Defenders. If I had thought that at the time, I might have liked it less. I thought it was a fine, semi-rousing speech, but who were all those people? There was a couple of random cops, which I assume are good cops that Clark Johnson found.
The one from the bank.
You loosely know the bartender from from that episode prior. Clark Johnson, who I've enjoyed seeing his, Karen, but who are these people? And
who are they, and what kind of power does it give them that they're together?
Why is he gathering there? And
it's just a whole lot of woof. Like, now you're gonna have to just explain everything at the beginning of the next season, because what is happening?
Well, and I wonder when. I don't think it's coming till 26.
Yeah, March.
Even though I believe they're done with them. I almost wonder if they wouldn't have been better off just running one 17 episode.
Yeah, I mean, well, I can, if they were filming when the writer's strike shut down, I think the original intent was to film all of the episodes.
And it was originally supposed to be 18 to 9 episode seasons, but now it is officially listed on IMDb as 17 with 8 episodes in season 2.
Yeah, and well, no, I mean, originally at the very beginning, just season 1 was going to be 18 episodes.
Yeah,
somewhere along the line they split it into 2 seasons, and I think they split it into 2 seasons so that they could do more work to transition the second season into this new creative direction that they had started adapting with Karen and Foggy and everyone coming back. And so I'm hoping that what we get is a more cohesive, singular vision second season that has a clearer buildup. And you know what? I got to address something that's been bothering me this whole season that they never explained, that I think they need to explain. The end of Daredevil season 3, now that they have decided to adopt the Netflix series, the deal is Kingpin goes to prison, and as long as Matt, Foggy, and Karen are left alone, Matt does not legally go after Vanessa, and, they are allowed to still be a couple. So at some point, Kingpin got out of prison, and we have no idea how that happened.
Yeah.
In between season 3 and him showing up in Hawkeye, they didn't bother to write an explanation of how he got out of prison and how he disappeared from Vanessa and what he was doing when he was in Hawkeye and Echo. They have completely glossed over that and just talked about how he and Vanessa were distanced, and now they're not distanced anymore. And I think they're trying to say that that's enough, but they are pulling so hard on the end of season 3 with Bullseye still being a thing and Kingpin still having built something in that mysterious absence that had to have started planning when he was in prison. I don't think they can leave these holes unfilled. And maybe they will, and maybe it'll be fine, but it's stuff that's starting to bother me because the seams are starting to show and things are starting to fall apart. If everything was emotionally moving in the direction that feels earned by the episodes previous, I don't think I would be questioning it.
Yeah. Well, and it certainly seems like the second half, when they go into everything, is going to be very heavy, going back to Karen and uh, to Frank Castle, because I was looking at the credits now for the series, and now it's showing Deborah Ann Woll and John Bernthal as being in 10 episodes. They were each
Mhm.
2 this first season, and there's 8 in the second season. So
2 characters who, just a reminder, were not in or refused to be in the original creative vision for the 118 episode season.
yeah,
So, yeah.
it's going to be interesting. I still enjoyed it overall, but there was a point in the season where I thought it was arcing toward being one of the better shows of the year,
Yeah.
and I don't,
It just didn't
it
stick the
didn't
landing.
land there for me. Yeah, I might end up still staying in my top 10. It's in my top 10 right now, but
Mhm.
we're still midpoint of the year, and there's some stuff finishing. But I that pilot gave me so much hope for a show that we didn't ever quite see it get there. And not that it can't get there, and maybe it can get there easier in a second run of 8 episodes where you have a more consistent vision and you're not trying to work together all the pieces of 2 disparate. Because when you have developed for television by 3 people and you have 2 people who worked on the first part, and you can see like the original developed for television are the credited writers on episode 2,
Mhm.
and then Dario Scarapane, who is the third developed for television, is the credited writer on 1, 8, and 9 in
Mhm.
this season. So you can see now where they're going. And like you said, Benson and Moorhead were brought in to direct 1, 8, 9, and they have more episodes they're directing in season 2. It was clear that there was some kind of midpoint shift, and maybe that's why they wanted to break it into 2 seasons. They needed more time to finish
Yeah.
what they were going to do on the back end, to do something different.
Mhm.
But I still enjoyed it. I'll wait for it to come back, but that finale was not the best episode
No. Long story short, no. Yeah.
of the season. So, any other
Before
recommend?
you do your
Yeah.
shout outs, you should tell me the card from the
Yeah.
box.
I was going to ask you if there are any things you want to shout out that you've seen.
Didn't really get to watch there. No, nothing new.
I don't know if you're a Last of Us fan.
I am absolutely, and we are going to start watching that. There's too much stuff going on this weekend. I think we're gonna have to play catch up on like 3 episodes next weekend. But yeah,
A little boy leaves his room for the first time.
right.
So while you're giving some thought to that, this of course being our, describe where's the camera? Uh, Explain a movie poorly.
Yeah.
There are a couple movies I want to shout out. Other than Sinners, the other kind of wide release this weekend is The Wedding Banquet. This is a remake of a 1993 film from Ang Lee that was about I think it was a Chinese immigrant. I don't know if I've seen the 1993 one, who ends up needing to marry a woman so that he can stay with his boyfriend in New York to get a green card. Obviously, laws have changed significantly between 1993 and 2025. So they kind of morph the plot a little bit here to update for modern times. But Bowen Yang is in this new version. Lily Gladstone, who we saw in Killers of the Flower Moon, and Kelly Marie Tran, who was in a couple of the Star Wars movies. I thought this one had some good comedy and it ended up being a sweet story. I love you trying to figure out what this movie could potentially be. Had a kind of a sweet story. So if you're looking for something that's non-vampire esque, it's not a straight comedy. It comes from the Chris who did Fire Island. So I think some people probably thought it was going to be it. Not that there aren't funny moments. It's Andrew on. Sorry, I knew I messed up that name. There are funny moments, but I actually was more moved by some of the emotional sequences. I really liked Kelly Marie Tran in this film. I thought she did a very good job. So does I I know I'm gonna butcher this name a little bit, but Yao Yun Jun, who was in who got the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her work in Minari. She is in here playing another kind of a sweet role, kind of a nice job for Joan Chen in here, who plays Kelly Marie Tran's mother. But a movie that I enjoyed, I thought was pretty good. Another one I want to shout out from last week that briefly held my number one spot of the year until Sinners came out, and that is Warfare. It came out last week. It comes from Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza.
Yes.
Ray Mendoza worked with Alex Garland on Civil War. That's how they got to know each other, and they decided to team for this one. An incredible cast, incredible action. This one is Ray Mendoza was a Navy SEAL who served in Iraq, and this film is based on him and his company. In fact, one of the feels weird. DeFaro Woon Ati plays a young Ray in this. Will Poulter's in this. Joseph Quinn, Cosmo Jarvis, Charles Melton. Just a great cast of kind of young actors in here. It's not the kind of film where you pull a standout performance. It's a true ensemble. It's based on the recollections of these men who survived this incident. It's set in 2006 in Iraq. You're following a group of Navy SEALs as they are on a mission that goes sideways and their attempts to survive. It is 95 minutes, so it is not very long, but it is incredibly intense. It is unlike anything I have ever seen. Alex Garland gave me one of the movies I liked best from 2024 in Civil War. Ray Mendoza was kind of their stunt coordinator on that. This movie they co-wrote and co-directed and is incredibly intense in an almost completely different way. Does the same thing. It was interesting to listen to them talk in an interview about what they wanted to do was give you a feeling, of what it's like to be in combat that was sort of apolitical, where you're not thinking about the political stakes. Those aren't the questions that this movie is trying to answer. It similarly will probably the same people that were frustrated that Civil War didn't definitively tell them how to think will probably be frustrated that this movie isn't trying to tell you what to think. In fact, listening to the interview with Mendoza and Garland, they both even see the film probably differently in what they were trying to achieve through it, which I think is fascinating. But very intense, very well done, and another one that demands to be seen on a big screen.
Musicless, right?
They do at times have music. The opening is a big music, but I don't remember it having a score. If that's what
yeah, an interview that made me really fascinated in this was talking about how all the way through the sound design and direction is about being as high fidelity to the memory of what happened as possible. That it is just the as factually true as possible account of the experience of that warfare. Like it.
Yes, based on the recollections of the men. Basically, the way they did it is they gathered this group of soldiers and they talked about this. What did you experience? What did you see? And they kind of fused that together. Yes, and actually there's a sequence in the film where Ray is the radio operator.
Mm-hmm.
And after some things happened, there was so much chaotic traffic on the radio and so much going on that it was so loud and so intense. I actually plugged my ears for a minute,
Mm.
and that was the point in time where he rips his
Mm.
connection to his radio out so that he can focus on
Focus.
what he's doing. And I was like, oh, that totally. I just did the same thing.
Yeah.
I just that it is impeccable from a sound design standpoint. The way they use silence, the way that they use the chaos of warfare bouncing back and forth.
Mm.
It's definitely not a movie that glorifies war or violence, but is at the same time very reverent to the people who put themselves in harm's way and sacrifice to try to do a job. So it was incredible and incredibly intense. Another gem, and we got to appreciate these because I know Alex Garland has said he's not sure he wants to go back to directing.
Yeah.
So, he did write 28 Years Later.
Oh yeah, another good new trailer
with Danny Boyle later this summer, but really, really fascinating movie. If you want to hear a lot more from them, if you look up the podcast, The Big Picture, on the Ringer, their warfare episode, Sean Fennessy interviews Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza for about 30 minutes, talking to them about the production and what they were hoping to achieve and how they put this movie together. And I thought that was equally fascinating. So,
yep.
Do you want your hint? They do offer one hint.
They do offer a hint. Good, because I feel like there's an obvious answer that it has to be misleading.
So a boy leaves his room for the first time. Hint, after escaping.
Okay, so it's Room with Jacob Tremblay.
Yes, The Room.
Okay.
Room. Yeah, Room.
Okay.
The Room is much
it's a totally different movie.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, Room with. It's interesting. You think of Jacob Tremblay. I think of it as Brie Larson's Academy Award.
Well, they say the little boy. That's why.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's so it's really weird because this one, I'm sitting here thinking like, well, Harry Potter lived in a cupboard under the stairs, but like you said, maybe it was a
leaves his room for the first time though. So
I know
Room, he's born into the.
I know you accidentally gave me another hint in telling me that it's a movie I may not have seen last week.
Oh,
and I have not seen Room.
It's also based on a book I haven't brought myself to read yet.
Yeah.
Speaking of Harry Potter, though, I did start reading those books.
Where are you?
I am about 200 pages into The Goblet of Fire.
Okay, so what did you think of Prisoner of Azkaban?
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite out of the books. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I read it.
My friend Jenny said the same thing, that is either that or Goblet of Fire are her favorite of the books.
Mm-hmm. Now, after reading Prisoner of Azkaban, I'm really excited for you to go back and watch that movie and see how much it was gutted. And,
Well, so having seen the movies many times when I'm reading along, I think about the sequences. I don't know if gutted was the first word that came to mind, but it definitely feels like it's definitely altered from how you perceive it in the book to maybe make something more visual, especially Harry's interaction with the Dementors feels much more vague at the beginning in the book than from the movie. Even like on Quidditch, they talk about him falling off his broom. They don't talk about the Dementor having almost sucked his soul out, which is what you visually see in that movie. And in the movie, I remember them talking about that quite a bit in the ways that they do some of the other action and the way they deployed the Marauders map. I have to watch the movie again, but I seemed to remember a sequence that I don't remember reading in the book just now. So,
and the thing is, they actually don't reveal to you in the movie that the creators of the Marauders map are Harry's dad and his friends. They accidentally completely skip over that.
Which seems like an important...
Yeah, but in the fifth movie, they call Sirius Padfoot. He's like, they've got Padfoot in the place where it's hidden. And they call Wormtail a lot. So you can piece it together if you're paying attention, but like, yeah.
Well, there was a whole bunch of exposition in the Shrieking Shack that
Yeah. It was that
in the book
scene,
it's like 3 consecutive chapters of exposition.
Of just calm talking.
Not bad in a bad way, but it's 3 chapters. It's kind of important exposition.
Yeah, it's of calm talking, it's of bonding, it's of getting to know Sirius as a character. And in the movie, it's like 3 minutes of screaming. And it's
I just pulled the perfect card for next week. I'm so proud of myself.
Oh, good. Good. All right.
I can't wait. Yeah, no, it's been exciting to go through them. 2026 will be not only the 25th anniversary of the start of the film franchise, as Chamber of Secrets turns 25 next year. It also culminates in the fall of 26 when they begin the new television revival.
Yeah.
So it'll be a big year. I want to finish reading them this year and going back through them and get ready for that, because that'll be a fun kind of celebration.
Yeah,
We'll set aside how people feel about the author.
That's the thing.
It's strange for me. I finally decided to read these books, and I'm enjoying it so much, reading the stories because I have always enjoyed the films.
Yeah,
it feels a little weird to be
doing
it right now, but
it was such a big part of my life growing up. Like I watched the first movie in theaters when I was 11, and I watched the last movie in theaters 10 years later. And like, it's to be so separated because I don't want to support what she does with all of this money that she makes from this franchise. It's hard because now my son is going to be 6 years old, maybe even 7 when that first season comes out, which means he's going to be 17. Which means he's going to be 17 when the show is over, and Harry is on screen 17 in the last book.
I don't know that it'll be 10 years. I think they're doing 1 season per book. So
no, it's 10 years.
That's what they said?
Yeah, the thing is contracted for 10 years, which I think was something that people always wanted them to do with the movies, which is split up the books earlier when they get longer after like 4 and 5 into multiple seasons.
I was, first book's like 300 pages, second book's like 330 pages, third book like 400 pages. So you can tell I started Goblet of Fire. It is 740 pages. And I'm like,
fifth book is 870.
I know. I'm like, they did not put this all in the movie. The movie was like a crisp 2 hours and 20 minutes. So.
Yeah. 5 is shockingly faithful in its details, actually. But 3 and 4 are the ones that are the most off the mark. 4 is probably the single most changed movie from the book. But it's just, I know it's going to continue to be a part of my life. I just this week started playing the original PC Sorcerer's Stone video game with my son so that we can hear him say flipendo ad nauseum until I want to chuck a controller at the screen. And it just has so much, not just nostalgia, but it's so much fun, and watching him get interested in the world and everything. It's so bad because I want to share it almost like more than I want to deplatform J.K. Rowling. And I know the part of me that wants to engage with it is winning out. I just hope that it doesn't cause too much damage to the communities that are being, stepped on in support of this woman. So yeah, it is what it is, but I'm really excited you're reading the books, and I think there's room to talk. I think we could talk about it more like going forward.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And I am so glad I found this card for next week.
Okay, I'll get hyped. That's good.
I'm not going to give it away. I don't want to give you too much time to think about it. Next week, we will be back talking about Until Dawn, which is another new horror movie, this one based on a video game. So, we began April with a video game adaptation. We're ending April with a video game adaptation. Probably not the same audiences. I'm just going to go out on a limb. If Minecraft was your jam, Until Dawn, probably not as much.
You'd be surprised.
But I'm sure we'll talk about a few other things next week as well. I'm kind of sad that our time with Daredevil Born Again has ended for
Yeah.
this
But I think
period.
we might kick up The Last of Us if we're caught up on it. So.
Yeah, once you catch up, I of all the
See,
zombie like shows that exist, that is one of them.
yeah, we played through the first Last of Us game, so I knew that story watching the first season. I have not played a second of The Last of Us Part 2, so this season is going to be entirely new stuff for me, and I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of emotional baggage.
Well, it comes for everyone. I don't know if I was prepared to see the boots and odd shorts that Pedro Pascal was wearing to the Star Wars celebration either, but you know what? Sometimes things are foisted upon you.
Yep.
So, well,
right.
Until next week, we will see you guys at the movies. Be sure to go check out Sinners.